So let's look at what is business risk. So when it comes to commerce, when it comes to business, trade, risk is an undeniable factor. Every business has its own risk. But what is this risk and what is the difference between risk and an uncertainty? So these two are two different concepts. So risk or a business risk, if you see, it will always lead you to, as an entrepreneur, it will lead you to a loss. Whereas uncertainties are unexpected events happening. It may not be due to the consequence of a decision made in a business. It may also be due to other factors. But if a risk, if you take, it may be because of certain business decisions or consequences of business activities. So that is the basic of what is a risk and what is the difference between the risk and an uncertainty. So in this video, let's go and see what are the nature of business risk and the types of business risk and why these business risks are being caused. Okay. The first one is business risk arise due to uncertainties. So here uncertainties are unexpected events happening due to other factors. So when we do not have a foresight or we lack a knowledge of what is going to happen in the future, then it becomes a business risk. So for example, uncertainties here they have referred to natural calamities like suddenly floods, drought, famine, tsunami comes in, so a hurricane. So all these unexpected events, we can predict them not to the accurate, but actually we can predict that it may be caused. So those kind of things, change in the demand and price has to be predicted, change in the government policies and technological changes. So all these things are uncertain. They are not regular, they are not definite, they are uncertain. But prediction of these uncertainties has to happen in a business. If that is not going to happen, then it will lead you to a risk. Secondly, risk is an essential part of every business. So if you take the nature of risk, any business you take, it has some risk. A business will not exist without risk. So if you take any business, a minimum amount of risk or a maximum amount of risk will be there. So risk is one thing which you cannot separate it from a business concern. Thirdly is the degree of risk depends mainly upon the nature of the business. So the nature of the business in the sense, what are the types of goods and services you are dealing with and the size of the business. That is how much you are producing. You may produce a large amount of goods or you may produce a small amount of goods. So these two are the main factors which are going to determine the nature and the size of the business. So if the nature and size of the business is huge, then the risk also will be huge. If it is medium, the risk is going to be medium. If it is small, then it's going to be a small risk which is going to be faced by the entrepreneur. So nature and size of the business determines the volume of risk. So if it's a large scale business, large risk. Small scale business, small risk. Next what we have is a profit as a reward for risk taking. So any risk which is going to happen, as I said, it's going to be leading you to loss. So how you are going to regain and come out of that risk has to be evaluated and has to be rewarded. So what is the reward which is going to be paid for coming out of that risk? So the reward is nothing but profit. So turning that loss happening due to a risk into a profit is a reward for overcoming that risk. So the first 4 words which is given there, no risk, no gain. So without taking any risk in business, definitely the business will not gain or will not get a profit. So here, when there is a risk in the business, it improves the chances of getting a profit much more higher. So he has to expect the risk and the entrepreneur has to foresee the solution for facing the risk so that he can reap the profit as an outcome for facing the risk. We are going to look into the types of business risk. So first of this type of business risk is a speculative risk. So it depends on the market conditions. So what is a speculative risk in the sense? The possibility of gain as well as the possibility of loss in this type of a risk depends on the market condition. So that's called as a speculative risk. So if the market condition is favorable for the entrepreneur, then it results in a gain. Whereas if the market condition is unfavorable, it results in a loss. Next we have is pure risk. So pure risk means a risk which will always end up in a loss. However, we try to find remedial measures to overcome the risk will end up in loss. So such risk is called as a pure risk. Next we have is called as an insurable risk. So what is an insurable risk? A risk which can be insured. The loss can be covered by an insurance company. By taking up an insurance is called as an insurable risk. So usually the loss arising out of this risk may be natural or an physical risk, and the probability of this risk to happen is also less. So the insurance company will cover up the risk provided the particular business owner insures for the risk, and it is being covered by the insurance company. Next is the uninsurable risk. So a loss which is arising out of a risk which cannot be predicted, which is unforeseen in nature, whatever it may be, whatever kind of uncertainty it may be, the entrepreneur was not able to predict it. Then that kind of a risk is called uninsurable risk. So this risk cannot be insured and the loss is definite. So for example, natural calamities, earthquake, floods, cyclone. So we cannot estimate the damages caused by these risks. So mostly in these type of risks, the government takes care of the affected person, and any loss which has been attained, uninsurable risk, are called uncertainties. So this risk is different from uncertainty. So in certain events, the decision cannot be taken, or the probability of the damages caused by this risk cannot be ascertained. So these are the types of business risk which happens. Let's look at the causes of the business risk. So business risk may arise due to many causes. The first cause over here is the natural cause. So cause for the risk is due to human beings who have a very little control over certain things called as natural calamities. So these natural calamities, earthquake or flood or famine or heavy rains or tsunami, lightning, so these kind of things produce a heavy loss to our business. So these kind of a risk is called as a natural cause of risks. Next type of cause of business risk is human causes. So the characteristics of human, any dishonesty or carelessness or negligence which is performed by a human being as an employee in the business, or he goes on a strike or a power failure or any kind of riot against the management. So all these cause risk, and these risks are caused by human beings. Economic causes of the risk. So goods, demand for the goods, competition, price, collection of dues from the customers, change in technology, methods of production, borrowing, tax levied on that particular product. So all these kind of cost, which is a part of the operating cost in the business, is a cause for a risk to arise. Next are the other causes. So the other causes for the risk are political disturbances, mechanical failures, fluctuation in the exchange rates, bursting of boilers. So all these kind of things also lead to business risk, which are categorized as other causes.